are very excited to have Dorothea Shields with us today. She's a seasoned speaker and an author who loves to make God's word simple and relatable for everyone. Her passion is equipping Christian women to pursue God's purpose from a place of faith and love rather than striving or self-effort. On any given Tuesday, you can find her and her husband enjoying Taco Tuesday, sometimes together and sometimes with friends and family. No matter the company, tacos will be eaten. Dorothea always brings a fresh perspective on God's word. I know you're going to have an aha moment. Let's welcome Dorothea Shields.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, ladies, so much for having me today. I want to start out by asking you a couple of questions, mostly rhetorical questions. Since you are in this room and you are here today, I know that you have a God dream in your heart. Am I right? Yeah. I also know, because I'm human and I do have a God dream in my life, that there are days and there are times and seasons when you're frustrated and you're tempted to give up. Is that you? Have you ever experienced that? Yeah, me too. There's also another kind of woman that you might find yourself fitting that role, and that would be someone who maybe has had a difficult life. Delays, roadblocks, things have gotten in your way, things haven't gone the way that you expected, and you see that dream that God gave you, and you see where you are, and you think, I am so delayed and behind. I will never be able to catch up. I'm here to tell you today that that's not necessarily the truth. And so I want to talk to you today about Joseph. We can find Joseph's story in Genesis, starting in chapter 37, goes through chapter 50, which is the end of the book. And Joseph had a lot going for him. He was 17. He had 2 dreams that spoke to something pretty great and amazing happening to him. And his family was not really on board with that. Joseph was not the oldest of his family. Now, if you are familiar with the culture of that time, it would have been the oldest son who would have had all the benefits. The youngest, the next to the youngest, was pretty much a nobody. Yet, he was his father's favorite, and everybody knew it. And because of that, his brothers were very jealous. They were envious and jealous of him, which led them to want to murder him. They plotted to murder him, but instead he got the consolation prize of being sold into slavery. Yay, right? So Joseph is sold into slavery. The text tells us that God was with him. And so he did well. And I can almost imagine that there were parts of Joseph who thought, okay, I mean, this isn't the ideal, but I could live with this. But then something else happened, and his boss's wife was filled with lust and came after him, and he refused her. He ran away, but she manipulated the situation, accused him of having done what he refused to do, and he ended up going to prison. Now, the text does not tell us exactly how long Joseph was in prison. Some scholars think maybe 10 years. That is a plenty long time. And I want to just stop here and remind you that this is the person who had the God dreams. He had the God dreams, and yet he was falsely accused, sold into slavery, stuck in prison, an ancient Egyptian prison that we probably couldn't even begin to comprehend the deplorable conditions that Joseph was living in. However, Again, the text tells us God was with Joseph. And so, Joseph, I would imagine, went through the whole gamut of emotions, just like you and I would. You know, the steps of grief, was it like the 5 stages of grief? I'm sure he went through all of those stages. In all of the time, did he ever get over the grief of losing the dreams, of not being able to achieve what God had for him? If I were in Joseph's situation, I would have dealt with a lot of hopelessness. And I know this because even though I haven't been in Joseph's situation and you haven't been exactly in Joseph's situation, we all deal with disappointments and roadblocks and difficulties and setbacks. And we deal with hopelessness, anger, bitterness, unforgiveness. How about confusion? Anybody ever have confusion? I know I do. I can relate to that one. Like, God, I know you told me. What is going on here? I think that Joseph's situation was like a tomb. He was sent there not by his own choice. It was a dark place. It was a place where his dreams were dying. His hope was gone. Like, how do you get out of an Egyptian prison? Ancient Egyptian, how do you get out of that? I don't think there was any compassion or any hope that he could. But what did happen? He did have a ray of hope come when the cupbearer and the baker were thrown in prison with him. They had dreams. He interpreted their dreams, and he said to the cupbearer, because he knew the cupbearer was going to come out of it alive, he said, remember me. When it goes well with you, remember me. 2 years later, when the cupbearer had forgotten him and Pharaoh had a dream, the cupbearer remembered Joseph. And at 30 years old, Joseph was out of prison and set into his place, his purpose. That dream that he had had, the God dream, was coming to pass. Now, I don't know what your dream is, but I know you have a dream. You said you had a dream. I have a dream. I know that God has given me a dream. I don't know what kind of roadblocks and delays that you've faced. We've all experienced tragedy. We have all experienced trauma. We've all experienced the unmet expectations, resistance, heartbreak, disappointments, and it's led us to want to give up, lay down and die, become hopeless and confused. And like Joseph, we may feel that we're in a lifeless tomb. Romans 8:28, I want to read it to you out of the Amplified. It says, and we know with great confidence that God, who is deeply concerned about us, He causes all things to work together as a plan. I love that, as a plan. Not just as some kind of haphazard thing that happened in our life, as a plan for good, for those who love God. Do you love God? I love God. And for those who are called according to His plan and purpose. If you love God, this is for you. He is working in your life as a plan, all of these things that are good, for your good. Tombs and wombs are both dark places. But tombs are where the enemy wants to send you in hoping that you will die, hoping to kill your purpose and to kill your dreams. But God uses those dark places as a womb to form you, to grow you, to develop you. And here are three things that I see God doing in this womb-like situation that we face. Number one is God uses everything for good. He takes everything and he uses it. Number two is that God heals our pain. Remember that trauma and that tragedy and the unmet expectations, all of those bring us such pain. And so God is healing that pain and he's empowering us to forgive. And at the appointed time, he births you into your next step. Now, God knows your timeline just like he knew Joseph's timeline. All of those things that happened to Joseph, they didn't delay Joseph from reaching his destination, his purpose. They served to form him into the person who could handle it. God used all of that. He's using all of it in your life. He knows your timeline just as well as he knew Joseph's. And he is taking you from this place, this person that you are or that you have been, and he is going to bring you into the place where you need to be when you need to be there. I want to tell you a quick story about my daughter, Jessica. It kind of exemplifies this message. Jessica was born in 1997, and early on, we recognized that there was something a little off with her. She missed developmental milestones, and so we began testing and then programs and therapies. And I want to tell you a little bit about, we lived in Garland when she was born. And so pay attention to these addresses. When she was born, we lived at 2813 Dove Meadow. Then when she was 6, we moved to our Rockwall house, and it was on Grass Valley. Then 10 years later, when she was 16, we moved to Royce City, and we lived on Country Lane. Well, Jessica, because she was in special ed, she was able to stay in school until she was 22. And at 22, she aged out, and we were faced with having to make serious decisions about what was going to happen with her life next. And so after prayer and all of that, we determined the best place for her and the best next step was to find a group home for her. Now, there's more need than there are beds. And so we called around. Nobody had an opening. I asked to be put on the wait list. And after a few months, we got a call from a house inviting Jessica to come and visit to see if it was a good fit. Sure, we would love to do that. What is the address? When I saw the address, I knew that God had planned and prepared this place for my daughter. He knew ahead of time all about her and where she would need to be and when she would need to be there. There was a piece of all 3 addresses in this one address. How did that happen? Only God. Not only was he working in our life, but he was working in total strangers' lives to bring it all together for Jessica. She's doing the same thing for each and every one of you. It's not a tomb, it's a womb. You're not delayed, you are right on time. Ladies, I want to thank you so much for letting me be here today.